If there is one thing we've learned about the investigation into January 6th, is that it's fluid. We are now more than a year and a half removed from the attack on the Capitol, and new information is still coming in. Throughout these public hearings, we've seen the committee pivot a number of times, rescheduling and recalibrating as they acquire new evidence and get new witnesses to talk. Remember, it wasn't until last Friday that the committee was able to get its first recorded interview with former White House counsel Pat Cipollone, a key witness to the events leading up to and on January 6th. And the committee is still gathering new testimony. On Friday, big lie backer and former Overstock CEO Patrick Byrne spoke to committee investigators. Byrne was a part of that remarkable December 18th Oval Office meeting in which Michael Flynn and pro-Trump lawyer Sidney Powell pressed Donald Trump to seize voting machines and to name Powell as special counsel. There is also new information surfacing about the Secret Service and that the committee is interested in that. The Secret Service is now being accused of deleting text messages from January 5th and January 6th after the Department of Homeland Security's internal watchdog requested those messages. In a statement, a spokesperson for the Secret Service said the data was lost during a pre-planned device replacement program and denied that the texts were intentionally deleted. Still, the erased texts will likely put yet another angle of focus on the actions of the Secret Service around the insurrection. And as new information continues to roll in, there are still big questions about the committee's future actions. The Wall Street Journal reports that in a Thursday meeting, the committee was still discussing whether to subpoena former Vice President Mike Pence and to request testimony from Donald Trump himself. Prior to that report, it was unclear that either of those possibilities remained on the table. Congressman Adam Kinzinger also told the Journal that he does expect the committee to make a criminal referral to the Justice Department regarding Trump's actions. Joining me now to break down the latest is former FBI counterintelligence agent Peter Strzok. Peter, it's always a pleasure to have you here. I know you, like me and millions of others, have been watching and closely following the 1-6 hearings. What are you, though, going to be keeping your eye out for next week's primetime hearing? We know the focus will be on the 187 minutes between when Trump knew and did nothing until he ultimately told the people to go home.
Right, Katie. I think that's absolutely going to be the key of the entire hearing. The committee has been leading up to that fact, and that they were putting this not only at the very end, but placing it in prime time. And I think what they've done to date is lay out this narrative with all these different paths, whether it's the folks on the ground, whether it's the attempt of the bogus electoral slates, whether it's people who were encouraging, Mark Meadows to meet with folks like Mike Flynn and Roger Stone. All these various paths, all these different sort of chapters all come together at the very end in the final chapter, which is Donald Trump. So what I'm absolutely looking forward to is not only what he was doing absolutely during that time that the Capitol was under attack, but also seeing what information they have about what Donald Trump knew and what he was directing those people around him to do with regard to these various activities, whether that is how and if he knew about the march on the Capitol in advance of it occurring, what and if he knew about the fake electoral slate attempts, what, if anything. Obviously, he was on the call with the state of Georgia, but this is the committee's chance to take all these different narratives and bring it all together at the center with Donald Trump and lay out exactly what he knew, what he was saying, and in particular, what he knew in advance of all these things happening.
Peter, you've been in D.C. for a long time. You've also known how some of the inner workings go on at the Oval Office. An important part of this presentation obviously includes the United States Secret Service. We know through that bombshell testimony from Cassidy Hutchinson, there was that crazy Trump interaction, trying to get to the Capitol. But these recent reports have come out are pretty alarming to me as a former prosecutor. The committee has been given a letter from the Homeland Security Inspector General that says many of the Secret Service's text messages from January 5th and the 6th were erased after the IG requested those records tied to the insurrection. Let's just slow down a bit, though, Peter, and let's talk about how this could happen and the likelihood that there was intentional spoliation of evidence here.
Well, it's certainly a mess, and it's the kind of thing you absolutely don't want to see being played out in the public arena because it's nothing that either the IG or the Secret Service wants splashed all over the headlines. Now, it's important to understand that the DHS's Inspector General, Joseph Kafari, is a Trump appointee. He served as a political advisor to Arizona's Doug Ducey. He is not some holdover from the Obama administration. He spent a career in the Air Force. He spent time at the DOJ's Inspector General. He is somebody who is absolutely a professional, and if anything, somebody who falls on the Republican side of things. So this is not some, attempt to sort of try and get to people who are around Trump. The second aspect of this is, of course, Kafari wrote this letter on Wednesday to Congress saying essentially two things. One, that the Secret Service had destroyed information after he had asked for it. And two, that he wasn't getting timely information, that it all had to go through attorneys before they could review it. Secret Service last night immediately or very quickly sent out a statement saying that's not accurate, that they began this phone refresh in January of 2021, that the request from the IG didn't come in until February of 2021, and that this has been a long simmering dispute about timely access to information that they disagreed with. Look, at the end of the day, one of these parties is right and the other side is wrong. And so, there is no kind of nuance left anymore between these two positions. So what I expect to see happen, or I hope to see happen, is either people getting in front of Congress to testify under oath about what did or didn't occur and get to the bottom of it. Because the problem we've seen, certainly you mentioned Cassidy Hutchinson, after her testimony, there are a lot of sourcing in media of unnamed former and current Secret Service agents who were disputing her account. And then lo and behold, after sort of trying to undermine her credibility in the weeks that followed, the opposite came out. You had DC Metropolitan Police officers and others corroborating the fact that there might have been sort of a tussle within Trump's vehicle, and all the things that the initial statements that came out to sort of undermine Hutchinson were shown to be inaccurate and disingenuous. And so there's a mess here right now. We need to get to the bottom of it, and I very much want to hear what, in fact, did happen.
So, Peter, earlier this week, we know that Chair Benny Thompson, he basically said that the committee was in communications with the Department of Justice, but only regarding the fake electors scheme. What's your current read on the status of this DOJ investigation? You and I have spoken about this before. You've been supportive of allowing Merrick Garland and the DOJ to take their time to do their thing. Has your position changed in light of the evidence that's been elicited so far from the 1-6 committee?
Katie, it has. For a long time, and I spent my career making cases, doing investigations, working with prosecutors to bring charges. These things take time, particularly when they're complex. They go far more slowly than most people would like, and there are things you simply can't accelerate just by the nature of our judicial process. And so for a long time, I encourage folks to give DOJ time to look at this massive investigation. But there are some things that have come out recently, in particular reporting in the New York Times, indicating that folks were surprised by what they were hearing from Cassidy Hutchinson's testimony and other things they were hearing out of January 6th. And this almost, multiple sources talking about this is good that it happened because now people are finally beginning to say Trump's name around the Attorney General, around the Deputy Attorney General. Well, I'm sorry, we're in July of 2022. We're almost 18 months after the insurrection, the likes of which civil unrest we haven't really seen since the Civil War. And if the Department of Justice at the highest levels have not had, up until this point, very robust conversations about we need to be looking at and understanding what our plan is investigatively because regarding Donald Trump, because all of these things that we are seeing point to some role for him, that's contradicted by this reporting that seems that it's almost a topic that's been off limits, almost like he's Voldemort and we don't speak his name on the seventh floor of DOJ. And so some of this new reporting has given me some pause and some concern that DOJ may not be moving. They, I believe, will get there. The question I have in my mind is, have they approached this with sufficient urgency, looking at this as an existential threat, not as a past event, not as something that was just limited and done on January 6th, but continues to this day and threatens us now, threatens us in the midterm elections, and certainly threatens us in the presidential election in 2024. And so I hope to see an increased pace and increased urgency, but there are a lot of troubling signs that I've seen recently that give me a great deal of pause.
Peter, I appreciate your candor about that. You know, we have to take everything with a grain of salt that's out there for public consumption, especially you and I having worked investigations, having worked behind the scenes for these types of things. But I agree that time seems to be ticking and a lot faster. And it's not like you're going to be able to get some of that back. So I appreciate you taking the time to join us today, Peter Strzok, to help us break down what we've heard so far. I know you'll tune in next week to the primetime hearing, and we'll have you back and we'll talk about it some more. Thanks for your time today.
Great. Thank you, Katie.